Welcome back, everybody, to Handicap Hustle. I'm Jim Bressel, your host. Richard Frazier. Wow, the color has returned to his face. This is unbelievable. It's amazing. You made a miraculous recovery. You go 0-3, and suddenly you're in the hospital, and we barely hear from you. And then after a single 3-0 weekend, suddenly all the colors return to his face, and he's totally fine.
That's what happens.
Wow, this is great. God forbid that we have another rough weekend, and then your health is going to go to shit. So you're looking great. Suddenly, you're feeling great, coming off a 3-0 weekend, and that was coming off a 2-1 weekend. So we are back, baby. 5 out of 6.
Yes, that's correct. I couldn't be happier.
And is this just the when you flip a coin, coins can go 3 times one way and 3 times the other way and so on. Is this just coin flipping, or is something changed as far as what's going on in the world of phrase wins?
No, it's certainly not coin flipping. I made an adjustment a couple weeks ago after I hit that I hit an 0-3. By the way, I've had 2 3-0s and only one 0-3, but just wanted to
That's
clarify
true.
that.
And for the record, we are 15-11 on the season. That's a 58% clip, which is what, right about your typical annual
Nah,
average?
that's a little below where I want to be, but sometimes I'm a little late catching some flaws in the program, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but from season to season, a lot of times the websites where I grab my data from, they change the way they post the data, or they go out of business altogether, which happened to me prior to this season. So I have to find new ways to rearrange the data, and it's a lot more complicated than it seems. But in
What
this
was your
particular
what did you close out at last year? What percentage?
It was somewhere between 63, 64%. But
Wow, very
again,
nice.
the same thing happened to me last year where I had to make a mid-season adjustment. The problem with these programs, unless it's structured right, and I'm not a computer genius by any stretch of the imagination, but every week that there's games played, there's another layer of data that goes on top. Ideally, every time a new layer goes on top, I'd like to peel a layer off the bottom. But the way a lot of these sites are designed, the data, you just can't do that because it just accumulates during the course of a season. So you can't decide that, well, I'm going to go back X amount of games and I'm going to peel one off the bottom and then recalculate the numbers. So I did finally find a way to do that a couple weeks back, and then since I've done that, we've been 5 out of 6. So
Okay. Well, we're going to expect similar performance going forward, and we can dig into a little bit about what those changes were as we go through the games. So the week started with the Thursday night game with an amazing game between the Ravens and the Bengals, with the Ravens pulling out a 1-point victory in that. So Ravens go to 7-3 on the year. Bengals at 4-6. Bengals still likely to make the playoffs would be my guess, and Ravens looking like a Super Bowl contender, right, Todd?
although they're still behind my Pittsburgh Steelers, let's not forget that.
Yeah, the Steelers continue to surprise. Tomlin does it again, headed toward his how many years in a row for a winning season?
Every year he's been in the league, I can't recall
That's
the
amazing. I mean, that's got to be a record, right? Nobody has had that type of a streak.
yeah. I'm not a
You're saying
historian.
Tomlin as head coach has never had a losing record as a head coach.
That is correct.
Okay, I'm saying that seems underreported to me. That's an amazing statistic. But has he won a Super Bowl?
Yes, he has.
Oh, okay. That was with Roethlisberger 10 years ago,
Yeah,
something like that.
correct.
All right. So Tomlin, I mean, this guy's at this point, he's a Hall of Fame head coach.
It certainly looks that way at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've always liked him. But yeah, they switch quarterbacks and from Fields to Russell Wilson, and they don't miss a beat and continue to win. We haven't seen you
And
pick the Steelers yet this year. Is there? Will you pick the Steelers if it comes up that way? And more importantly, will you pick against the Steelers if the numbers
well,
show?
I'm somewhat obligated to. It's not that I like it. I would prefer that my team stays out of the mix, but no, if it's there, it's there. I have to give it out. So
You haven't given out them this year yet for or against them, I don't think. What about
they
last year?
they have not come up in the mix yet. No.
What about last year?
Uh, Last year, yeah, I had them one week. It was week one. It was week one against the the 49ers last year. If you remember that, it was a blowout. They got blown out. That was a loss I had.
And you had taken the Steelers.
I had the Steelers, yeah. I remember talking about this with you last year because the Steelers had they had a perfect preseason last year, and I knew going into week one, I'm like, geez, this is the worst thing that could happen to a week one pick is that have them have this perfect preseason because it just sets the expectation, even though these preseason games mean absolutely nothing. People see these games and they see the score and they think that wow, 4-0, we're on our way, Super Bowl, here we come, and that's really not the case.
Well, I really think it's cute that you are still such a big Steeler fan and Todd's such a big Ravens fan because I'm not a fan of any team anymore, and I've just gotten kind of jaded over the years, I guess. It's like I was a Rams fan and they moved to St. Louis and then they come back and now we're supposed to welcome them back and be all excited about them. I only root for who I got money on. I don't really
Well, I
care
know
anymore
you,
about any particular team.
and that's what you do as a casual bettor. But me being born and raised in Pittsburgh, that's a whole nother story there. I mean, if I was to take a knife and cut my arm, black and gold's going to come out.
Yeah, I get, I moved around a lot, so that's probably the best explanation. So my first team was the Dolphins because I was raised in Florida when, believe it or not, hard to imagine today, there was a single professional sports team in the entire state of Florida across any of the professional sports when I was raised. And that was the Miami
Yes.
Dolphins in the NFL. No
Yeah.
baseball, no basketball, no hockey. The baseball team I rooted for was the Atlanta Braves because that's who we would get on the radio. That was Florida's team, was the Atlanta Braves.
Right.
I'm old enough to that Hank Aaron was the star of the team. I remember tracking him when he was going to beat Ruth's record and hitting his 715th home run. Then we moved to Philadelphia, which was an awesome sports town, and we had the
Yep.
Flyers, Phillies, Sixers, and Eagles, and they were all pretty good. This is late 70s. But we were only there 4 years, so I couldn't get any strong allegiances there. Then we go back to Florida, and by that time they had the Tampa Bay Bucks. So, and we've talked about Tampa before, of course, but yeah, I was there
Right.
for year three when they went to the conference finals. So at least we had the Tampa Bay Bucks, but we were only there for a year. Then we go to St. Louis, where they had the Cardinals football team, the Cardinals baseball team, and the St. Louis Blues hockey. So for 4 years, we have season tickets to all that. But then we moved to LA. So I didn't build up any great allegiances there. And then I've been in LA ever since. But as I said, I mean, Dodgers and Lakers, I get a little bit excited about them. But, these are all athletes getting paid $20 million a year and billion-dollar owners and so on. And for me, it's all about the money, my money.
Well, we still have the Rooneys back in Pittsburgh, where old man Rooney used to walk to work every day. You know, it's a little different story.
So the
You
Roonies
know,
are still the owners.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Todd's team, on the other hand, was the team that was stolen from Cleveland,
I remember
right?
they packed up in the middle of the night and left town.
Right. And
Our,
then they
our,
slap a new name on them and suddenly call them the Ravens, and Todd's all excited. Woohoo! My
yeah,
team.
but
Meantime, his
they
team is now playing in Indianapolis,
yeah,
right?
well, at least the league did give Cleveland the Browns name back and gave them an expansion team. So.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, no, it really is the team moves that bother me, because if you're asking me to have all this loyalty and commitment to my local team, yet I see that you guys will willy-nilly move these teams around and suddenly give them to another city, then F you. Why am I supposed to be so loyal to my team?
Well,
You know?
it used to be a lot more common than it is now. These franchises have such a high value. They're worth so much money now that no league wants a team to change markets, unless it's absolutely necessary. The last team to move in any league was this past season, where the Arizona Coyote hockey team moved to Utah. And that was just because they couldn't get a deal done to get an arena in Arizona. The NHL didn't want to leave Arizona. They were forced to leave Arizona. So
Hold on a second. They had an arena. They played in an arena for 20 years that was perfectly fine. What was wrong with what they were playing in?
well, there's something to do with the rights. That's where the Suns played, I think, and there was some lease issues there. But for the last 2 years, the Arizona Coyotes had been playing at the Arizona State's little mullet arena, they called it, some little rinky-dink place that held like 5,000 people. So that's not NHL standards.
Yeah. Yeah, I just recently learned about that. That would have been cool to see a game there. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what happened. They had their own arena next to the football stadium in Glendale.
But
Uh,
they voted, they put it to a referendum. It got voted down to use taxpayer money, and so the owner was out trying to acquire
but
land, and
Rich,
they
that's the same story every time. It's always the owner stirring up some type of thing that they're claiming they're not able to get, whether it be the Chargers moving to LA or the Rams moving to St. Louis. They always say it's about a stadium, and really it's about the other city throwing a bunch of money at them, and the owner choosing to move. And of course, I think the other owners typically have to approve it, is usually how
they
it
do.
works in these leagues, right?
They do.
You got to get like three-quarters approval, but most of the owners are going to be inclined to approve it because it
And
improves
that's
the
why
value.
Vegas has become the sports capital now. If a team needs money, come here. We'll throw money at you. We'll just raise the room rates by $50 a night.
And the Oakland A's are going to be playing in Sacramento this year, right?
That's correct. Until their stadium is built here, which won't be done until 2028.
And what are they going to call the team while they're playing in Sacramento? The Sacramento A's?
Yes,
Ah,
as far as
interesting.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I got some friends there. They think they're going to hang on to the team, so they're excited, and they're going to try and keep them in Sacramento. Hey, they got a basketball team.
They got a
All right,
basketball team.
let's get you your picks, your 3-0 week. Two of them were pretty easy wins. I was on board with all three of them, Rich. As you know, I don't always go with you. I have my own mind, but in this weekend, you and I were simpatico, fully aligned, and I liked everything that you picked. Let's start with Falcons Saints, where the Saints were on an incredible, well, I think a 7-game losing streak. Those are the teams that you love. They started the season 2-0, lost 7 in a row. Falcons, we had just been talking last week about how strong the Falcons have been looking with Kirk Cousins and so on. But it definitely seemed to be a setup game. It's an intra-division at New Orleans. hungry for a win. The Saints do also have their quarterback back now, right?
Yeah, Derek Carr, this was his first week back, so that helped out a lot.
Yeah, that was a pretty surprising line, actually, for the Saints to be getting 3.5 at home, considering those circumstances.
Well, yeah,
So
they had been playing very poorly though, up until that point. And plus they got the extra boost with the firing of the head coach and the naming of the interim coach who they seem to want to play for a lot more. I mentioned a few weeks ago when we had New Orleans and lost, I said, boy, this team sure looks like they want to get their coach fired, and sure enough, it happened.
yeah, that's where it's good to have some kind of inside scoop as to the feeling about that the players have about the coach. Because in the Jets situation, I mean, we don't know what was going on there and how much Aaron Rodgers played a role and so on. But they've only won once since they fired their head coach. I think they were maybe 2-4 when they fired him, and they've been maybe 1-3 since, or something like
Yeah.
that. They get blasted by the Cardinals. The line on the Jets games has been surprising me all year. The bettors have been giving Aaron Rodgers way too much credit and this team. They were favored. I'm pretty sure they were favored, right? At the
Yes.
Cardinals.
Yes, they were. They were at home. Was that
It was
game?
at Arizona.
It was at Arizona. Yeah, the Jets were like 1.5, 2 point favorites in that game.
Yes, yes, and I took the Cardinals. I've done very well betting against the Jets this year, and they got absolutely smoked and didn't even score a touchdown. And this is it. I mean, Rodgers is going to presumably retire after this year, and the whole Jets experiment a total disaster.
Yeah, I expected more. I thought when the week before last, when we had the Jets, and they won that game and covered for us. That was a night game. I can't remember what night it was, but I thought that was going to kind of kickstart that team. I thought that they would go on a little tear and make a run at the playoffs. But you know, here they go into Arizona on Sunday and just get the living hell beat out of them. And I was shocked.
Well, let's get to your next game. You took care of your players by giving them a nice Sunday night game and a Monday night game. That's always more fun. And the Texans were getting 3.5 points. They lost by 3, so that means you covered by only a half point, but it still counts because you certainly lost plenty this season by a half point. But this game was really in the bag for you. The Lions had a miraculous comeback. I mean, the whole game was looking Texans were not just going to cover, they were going to win outright. It was 23-7 at halftime. And somehow they managed to lose this game. Detroit goes to 8-1 and looking like a Super Bowl favorite at this point, like a Kansas City Detroit matchup.
Well, Houston came out fired up. They were ready to go because I believe they had lost the week before. But yeah, great first half, great start. Everything went Houston's way, but they were unable to score one second half point in that
Yeah.
game, which enabled Detroit to get back in the game. So,
Yeah, that's where, Detroit was just hanging in there, hanging. Oh, that's the game where Goff had 5 interceptions in the first 35 minutes of the game.
yeah, exactly.
I think it was the first 5 interception game in like a long time in the NFL. Can you imagine to throw 5 interceptions and still win the game?
Yeah,
That is,
they showed a stat to throw five interceptions and win a game has happened only a handful of times in the history of football. You know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, 5 interceptions doesn't happen, is very rare to begin with, and then to win the game. So yeah, that sets Detroit up looking very nicely. And backing up, by the way, to the Kansas City game, I didn't see that game, but that was what, a blocked field goal at the end that kept the Chiefs undefeated this season. They were about to go lose to the Broncos, weren't they?
Yeah, the Broncos got the ball last and methodically marched it downfield. It got in field goal range, and it was a foregone conclusion that Denver was going to hand Kansas City their first loss of the game, and boom, the field goal gets blocked. Unbelievable.
And it was a chip shot field goal, right?
Chip shot, yeah. I mean, if Kansas City doesn't have the biggest horseshoe up their hind end, I don't know who does.
Wow. Wow. So keeps the Chiefs' perfect season alive. You need one game like that typically if you're going to run the table. There's always going to be a game like that you almost lose. I hearken back to a season in 1984. I'm sure you've heard about the undefeated season of the Claremont Wolfpack. No? That was
No,
my high school team, Rich. When I was a senior in high school, I played for the Claremont Wolfpack, and we ran the table. We went 14-0, and
shit,
at
was I alive back then? I'm not even sure.
no, you were still sucking your thumb at that time.
Okay.
But we had one game where basically we were down by like 4 points, 2 minutes to go. Our offense has the ball and throws a pass and it's incomplete. And basically the game is over. You know, our winning season, we were 8-0 at the time, our winning season over. And then the other team though got flagged for too many men on the field. So on our fourth down and 10 play that we had already missed, there was a flag for too many men on the field. So we get a 5-yard penalty, puts us to the 35, and we proceed in the final minute of the game to march down and win the game thanks to that penalty, keeping our undefeated season alive and ultimately win 14-0. I'm surprised you don't remember that, but most people
Yeah,
do.
yeah. I'll have to brush up on my history.
That's the Claremont Wolfpack here in Los Angeles. Anyway, Miami Dolphins, the 1973 team, or 72, was it 72 that they were undefeated?
72, yeah.
Yeah, the 72 team has to hold off their celebration yet another game. But when I mentioned my Claremont experience, what I remember though specifically was we got our asses kicked in practice the following week because we essentially lost that game. And when you got a long winning streak going, you tend to get complacent. And the coaches were able to use that to really get us fired up that, hey, assholes, you essentially lost that game. And they kicked our ass in practice that next week. And then we went on and won the rest of our games. So that could be what happens in Kansas City. Clearly, that was a letdown game for them to almost lose to the Broncos at home. But they got their scare. And who knows? If anybody's going to do it, the Chiefs are going to do it to have the first undefeated season since the Dolphins.
Yeah, it's I don't know who they have left on the schedule, but it's still awful difficult to win 17 regular season games, let alone march through the playoffs. I mean, well, we made reference to the Miami Dolphins and but back then you played a 14 game regular season schedule and 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl. So they essentially won 17 games total that season.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. So at the Bills this week, that ain't going to be easy.
No, it
And
will
then
not.
and then at your Steelers on Christmas Day.
Oh, well,
So
that'll kill it right there. Christmas Day at Pittsburgh. Yeah.
that's the two toughest games they've got remaining on their schedule. Everything else is relatively easy games, actually. Raiders and Panthers, etc. But at the Bills and at the Steelers, that's going to be
Well,
tough.
the Raiders beat them last year. Raiders
Yeah,
beat the
yeah. I mean,
Chiefs.
it's tough when you play a team. It's always tough when you have to play a team twice. All right. Speaking of Miami, your final pick was Miami Monday night against my Rams. To the extent I have a team, I guess I kind of root for the Rams, but I took Miami, so I wasn't rooting for the Rams last night. And it just seemed like everything felt right going into that game that, the Dolphins have Tua back. He's played well in the 2 games back, even though they lost. But this team seemed poised to turn it around. Not that this was an easy pick at all, but you would expect it was one of those lines where you'd kind of expect the Rams to have been more of a favorite. They were only a favorite by 1.5 points at home against what's been a bad Dolphin team. So that's one of those lines that you look at it, you're kind of like, how come the Dolphins are only getting 1.5? And sure enough, Rich picked the Dolphins, and they pretty much had that game in hand from the beginning.
Well, I mean, if you break down that game, aside from that first drive, which I think it took them 3-4 plays for the Dolphins to score a touchdown, that was their best drive of the game. You take that drive out of the equation, it's a whole different game. But I don't think everybody expected it to be such a defensive battle. I thought people thought, they're going to light it up and score a lot more points, but that's not the way it played out.
Yeah, that definitely was very surprising. I think the over-under was like 53 or something on the game. So very random how some of these games play out when it's expected to be an offensive
Well, yeah,
performance.
I mean, you got Tua, who's got multiple receivers. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. He's got Odell Beckham Jr. He's got 3 top-notch receivers, and not to mention on the other side, Stafford's got Cooper Kupp and what's your other guy? The Polynesian.
Yeah, yeah. Pogo,
The,
Pigo Pogo, something like that.
Pokio, yeah, Nico Pokio. I can't even say his name right, but anyways, he's one of the greatest receivers in the game right now, and yeah, and you would just have expected that game to have a lot more points than it did.
Yeah.
But
These defensive schemes, the announcer during the game, I think I was listening on the radio, was talking about how the Rams were confusing Tua, that they were showing man coverage and then it switches to zone coverage as soon as you snap the ball. And I was just thinking, like, wow, it's just football is a really cool sport when you think about the strategy behind it and how sophisticated it is. These defense, every play, they're pretty much showing a different type of defense and hiding what the defense is and positioning the players in a certain way. But then, when they snap the ball, they're going somewhere else. And, obviously, same thing with the offense. And it's only
uh,
gotten more sophisticated.
yeah, I will say that Tua, as great of a quarterback as he's been since he's been in the league, he doesn't quite seem to be himself. If I've noticed that he gets rid of the ball so quick now. He'll look at his main target and he'll do a one quick check down and he gets rid of the ball because he's suffered so many concussions. And then there's other times where it's like he has a chance to get rid of the ball or scramble out of the pocket, and he stands there and takes the sack. I mean, I don't know how many unnecessary sacks he took last night, where it seemed to me that he had plenty of time to get rid of the ball.
That reminds me a little bit of Rodgers. I kind of feel like these older guys are tired of getting hit and don't want to get hit anymore because Rodgers is always getting rid of the ball very, very quickly and not doesn't seem to want to stand in the pocket and take shots far down the field. You can only take so many shots when you get a little gun shy.
True, true. But Tua, I mean, he's a younger guy and he certainly has the weapons. He's got all these speed demons. I expected him to throw downfield more, but these teams, they regardless of how ineffective the run may be, they still want to hand the ball off and try to keep the defense honest.
All right. Well, we look forward to 3 more winners this week, Rich. You're on a roll, and then some of us will be watching the Mike Tyson fight on Friday night. It's free on as long as you got Netflix, which most people do. Really interesting I mean, Netflix is paying a ton of cash. I think Tyson's getting like 40, 50 million for this, something like that. But you know, anybody who doesn't have Netflix is certainly going to subscribe if they want to see this fight. So, pretty smart play by Netflix, probably. It's finally starting to get some buzz. It's a real fight. It's not an exhibition fight, and it's a 58-year-old man against a 27-year-old man. But it's essentially arguably the best boxer in the history of boxing, fighting a guy who's essentially an amateur. Not, I think he's got 9 or 10 professional fights, but he's got no amateur fights. So a very inexperienced guy. So interesting matchup. Yet the betting public is betting on the young guy. They're not betting on the greatest fighter of all time. They're betting on the young guy. He's like a 2.5 to 1 favorite. I'm pretty
Well,
surprised by that.
he's a social media influencer. He's gonna get the love.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, Tyson's a convicted felon and etc. But usually bettors are smarter than that. They don't bet with their heart; they bet with their head. And I don't know.
Do
That's going to
they?
be my free pick that I'm giving out this week, though. I'm saying take Tyson. It is a lock. And we already talked about this. You're going to take him, right?
Yeah, I am.
All
I
right.
will.
I'm going to go 1-0 this weekend, and I'm going with an underdog, and I'm betting him to win straight up. So there you go.
Okay. Well, what time should I be over? About 15 minutes before the fight?
Yeah, yeah, we'll have popcorn for you, ready to go. We'll definitely be screening. I think the fight's about 8 o'clock on Friday night.
Well, I'll certainly be watching.
All right, buddy. Well, congratulations on 5 out of 6. Glad that we righted the ship. We're at a 58% winning percentage this year. The second half of the year, Frazier wins, seems to always do better. The algorithms are in place. So it's getting to be your last chance to jump on board. You can go to Handicap Hustle on Substack. Handicap Hustle on Substack to subscribe to Frazier Wins and get your 3 free winner, not free, but discounted winners. I don't know what they're going for these days, but we've got the price way down there around $20 for you to give it a shot. Go to Substack, get a free subscription, or go ahead and subscribe and get Rich's 3 picks for this upcoming weekend. And like every week, we'll go over them the following week and see how Rich did. Rich, you
Jim,
get to go, you bet go get to work.
yeah. All
We'll see you next
my
week.
all my Vegas perks have been reinstated now that I went 3-0. So life is good.
All right, all right. And we're going to stay out of the hospital this week, which is good. All right, have a cocktail. Thanks, Rich. Thank everybody for watching Double Down with Double Down. I knew I was going to say that again. Handicap Hustle. Also, check out my Double Down show, only on CrossCheck Media. This is Handicap Hustle. Take care, everyone. We'll be back next week.
Bye.